Good morning. It's time for today's AM Minnesota program, and my guest today is Redlin, who's coordinator of the Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program. Brad, thanks for coming on the program today.
Well, good morning, Jerry. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Well, we first met way last spring at the kind of rollout of the program at Dave Lexvold's farm there in Northfield. And we talked about doing this program, and you thought I forgot, didn't you?
I knew you would never forget. I was just waiting patiently.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself first, Brad, where you grew up, maybe where you went to school, and how long you've been with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture.
Well, I grew up on a farm, but our farm, my brother's got it now. My dad's retired off of it, is out in eastern Montana, really up by about 100 miles from Canada and a stone's throw from North Dakota. So I'm out in that country where we have wheat and small grains out there. I came to college in Marshall, Minnesota at Southwest State. My dad had served on the board of it used to be GTA, now it's CHS. So we used to get to know Minnesota real well growing up, and I was kind of drawn to the place. And so I got some education here, worked elsewhere, but ended up coming to the Department of Ag a little over 3 years ago now, with the inception of this program. That's what brought me to the Department of Ag, was to manage the Ag Water Quality Certification Program. I was honored to be invited by Commissioner Fredrickson, Assistant Commissioner Woolman, to join them in the task of launching this brand new program that we'll be talking about today.
Where did the program come from, or where did the idea come from, Brad?
Well, the Commissioner Fredrickson and Matt Woolman, his assistant, were kind of new on the job themselves when they came on board, and they were thinking one of the things they noticed is that everyone was talking about water quality in ag, not everybody actually. They felt like half the people left out of the conversation. That was the producers, and they weren't getting their word out, and they just didn't really have a platform to talk about it. And they said, well, we're the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. We got to be that platform for the producers, so let's create a program where we can provide the recognition, the platform for those producers to give their side of the story and to demonstrate quite literally and physically the great work that they're doing out there every day, because everyone knew what was going on, but they just seemed to be having a heck of a time communicating that to the broader world.
So we leveraged the Minnesota Department of Agriculture then to help get our word out and tell our story that we're doing a good job. Sure, maybe there's ways that we can improve, and this program would maybe help identify that, and then we can all get better.
That's just the way it happened. They said, look, we know there's great work going out there. We know every farm knows that there's a problem part or a challenge or a management or a checking balance issue or whatever it is that might create for some things that you'd like to do better, and we could help with that. And the same time, we're doing this recognition and say, hey, if there is a problem, what can we marshal to support you and help you in overcoming something in the way that you want, using the methods that you want, which is really the DNA of our program, is to provide that opportunity for risks as they are found to be able to do that. And the other thing is that when they proposed the idea, they heard about it in Washington, D.C., and that's when they came on and said, hey, let's make it a national pilot. Let's show that Minnesota can demonstrate the rest of the states in the nation how to do it. So that's when they got signed on from the USDA Secretary Vilsack, and actually even the U.S. EPA at that time said that they would certainly back it up as a certainty component we can talk about later, too, in terms of the regulatory certainty provided with their program.
When I first was up there, met you, and started hearing a little bit about the program, it did remind me, Brad, of an old program that I'd heard years ago called the River Friendly Farmer Program. Kind of reminded me of that.
Well, it's not the first time I've heard that, and it's because it's not rocket science, I'll have to admit. For all of our enjoyment in the work we're doing, we do have to be honest with ourselves that it's just simply a common sense activity here and a project that we're doing. That's just saying, what do you do to recognize farmers? Well, you give them an opportunity to show their operation, what they're doing, how they're doing it, have a look to see if there's any particular risks posed to water quality that most times, if there are, and there's seldom very many, but the producers get to work on it. Yep.
Can you stand by? We have to take a break for the markets, and then we'll have lots of time to talk more about the agriculture water quality certification. But here, My guest on today's AM Minnesota program is Brad Redlin, who's a coordinator of the Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program. And Brad, I really like the idea. You mentioned it before the market break about how this idea came from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture as a way to give farmers a platform, landowners, to say that we're doing a good job and we want to try and do better.
Well, that's the simple thing of it. As I said at the outset, that we know there's great work going out there. People involved in agriculture see it every day. The care that's taken, the technology and advancements that have been adopted and are continually adopted in agriculture. Just through the decades, it's always been a leading adopter of change and advancements. And we said this is a no-brainer. We're going to go out there. We're going to provide that opportunity for producers on a voluntary basis if they're interested in being able to get a checkup on their farm and get the recognition as a certified producer, or even not accept the recognition. Frankly, it's provision of the program is that all the information involved in a certification process, and even the fact that a producer is certified, is ultimately private unless the producer says go ahead and make it public. So the default is that we don't tell anybody anything unless the producer would give us the okay, and then we're happy to share the word about the great work that's being done with the world on an individual basis like that.
It was also pretty impressive when you mentioned that went all the way to Washington, D.C., and Secretary of Agriculture Vilsack really liked the idea and got behind it, and even the Environmental Protection Agency. Boy, you guys made a splash.
Well, it was one of those things, as I think timing sometimes is everything. The commissioner and the assistant Mr. Frederickson, Mr. Woolman, they recognized the opportunity here. They found folks in D.C. who felt the same way and said, Ag is doing a good job. The word's not getting out, and the way to approach this is through voluntary actions, because that's how anything gets done. And they said, well, let's just go ahead. We'll sign a document. We'll sign a sheet of paper that says we're going to do it. We're going to do it in Minnesota first, and Minnesota will show the way for the nation. And in the opinion of the Department of Agriculture, they want to see this even go further. So we're excited about that. We're excited about being the first place to try this effort. I'm certainly excited about having the honor of coming on board and working on it with everybody, which includes our federal partners, certainly, but it also, it's not always recognized that while the program's housed at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, we have full partnership, participation, and even legal binding from our sister agencies at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and the Board of Water and Soil Resources. So it's all those agencies that at the intersection of water and agriculture, they're all committed to this certification program, and they're all bound to support it.
Now, you just rolled it out last spring, right? So how, are we getting landowners and farmers into the process and saying, I want to participate and get my farm certified?
Well, we sure are. We had to design this thing from scratch because, as I was telling that story about how D.C. and the Department of Ag all got together and said, create this program, well, nothing existed. So it took us a little time to build it out of thin air. But like I said before, too, it also isn't rocket science, so we're able to just kind of do the logical thing, which I hope was always our guide, just do what's logical.
And the thing I like is it was logical with you and understand what we do out in the country, so you're using farm logic.
Well, there you go. No better logic out there, right?
That was my point.
Yeah, right on. So, but anyway, to your point, yes, by last spring was when we were finally fully functioned statewide, so that any producer in the state of Minnesota who wanted to participate finally could. So I was proud that we finally got to that stage. So today, I can tell you we've got 247, I think, farms certified. The number changes every day, but so that's a good jump for us. At least we're happy with the progress being made, and really what it signals more than anything is that the farmers are interested and enjoying doing it. So that's our customer. I want to make sure it works for them above all else. And so the response is great. We have in terms of open applicants, people seeking the certification right now, we're unfortunately a little backlogged. We've got over 400 folks out there today, as of this morning, that are in the process of becoming certified. And sometimes it's because we can't get a person maybe to them on right away, but also it's a case where we also recognize that farmers are busy guys, guys and gals, and we let them set the pace. We don't care if a person comes in and applies to become certified and decides to take 2 years to do it or 2 days. It doesn't matter to us. It's it's their call. They're going to do it at their pace, and as I said, that's fine by us.
Well, let's go over the nuts and bolts, Brad, of how it works, how it's actually implemented on farms.
Yeah, it's really a process that's the easiest access to it is through a local soil and water conservation district. Wherever your listeners are, they can just go to their county district there and ask them about the Minnesota Agriculture Water Quality Certification Program, and they'll sure to know about it. They'll have an application form. We do have an application form which does really just one primary purpose. That goes to show that sign that form and it says, hey, I'm seeking certification. And the reason we want to have that form signed is because with that signature now that producer is entitled to dedicated local professional technical assistance in examining any risk factors on their farm. It also entitles them to a special pool of federal and state dollars that are set aside for providing cost share assistance for any practices or management changes the producer may want to take. That's eligible only to people participating in certification and not anyone else. So the competition is just amongst other folks seeking certification. So that's why we want to have applications, just to identify people that way, and then gets our local people out there to do the certification. Because what we have is licensed certifiers out all locally. No one has to talk to anybody in St. Paul in this program. You don't need to be talking to Brad Redlin about it. You can just go to your local folks. I mean, they're going to have a better idea about the neighborhood and the farming and what's going on there anyway. And the process really just becomes a risk assessment. We do look at the land on the farm, because when we had to make this thing out of whole cloth and didn't know how to do it, we said, well, if we're looking to protect water quality, we know there's some things that are risky for water quality. There's just they might be physical conditions that could pose a risk to water quality. Some management choices can be more risky to water quality than others. So we said, well, let's just look for those. If we find a risk, the only point in finding it is so we can help them fix it using technical expertise, using financial resources, and that is the path to certification. When it's all said and done, we look for risks, seldom find them. When we do, we fix them as the producer wants. We don't come in and say, you're going to have to do this thing, you're going to have to use a cover crop, or you're going to have to put in a sediment base and all that stuff. We don't do that. We say, well, we found a risk on this field. You're probably well aware of it yourself. Oftentimes it's a farmer who says, I got a problem down there at the end of that 80, whatever it might be. And we say, well, here's all the options we know of, and here's the financial assistance, whatever it might be, to overcome that risk, and how do you want to go about doing it? And if they make the choice, the means, it might be they'll do 2 or 3 different things, or they might do one, they might move some dirt or something, whatever it might be. It's their choice. As long as they mitigate the risk, then we get them certified, and they're good with a 10-year contract with the state of Minnesota.
And you mentioned about any future regulations. You'd be exempt from that then?
That's how it works. We have that 10-year contract I just mentioned says that you're certified in the state of Minnesota, and you're deemed to be in compliance with any new laws that come along relative to agriculture and water quality. So we don't know what those are. No one does yet because they haven't happened yet. But we said if you're going to voluntarily step up, go ahead and have your whole farm looked at in terms of if there's any risks being posed out there. And if we happen to find a risk, you figure out the way it is that you want to fix it. We say, well, we've got no problem at all, and are quite proud to say you are deemed to be in compliance with any new law that comes along because, hey, we've already went and looked at your farm, seen the whole thing. You've showed us what you're doing. You're doing a great job. We don't care what the law that's coming down the road's passed to try to address any concerns somebody has with agriculture and water quality. We know that these guys that have guys and gals that have voluntarily shown what they're doing is no problem at all saying, well, you're going to not have to worry about that law for the whole 10 years of your certification.
My sense is, Brad, that there are a lot of farmers that come and say, I want to be certified, and Soil and Water, or somebody locally comes out and looks at things. A lot of them are doing everything the best that they can right now, so it's just a matter of a little bit of paperwork, and then they're certified.
Well, I'm proud to say that it works out real simple for the producer, and you're right, number one, that absolutely the guys and gals out there are doing great work every day. They know what they're doing. They're it's their money on the line. It's their income. It's their business. They're always going to be careful about it. So we find that the producers across the state, all types. I mean, we've seen them all from Red River Valley to these farm stand type places, organics, dairy, corn, beans, sugar beets. I mean, you name it. We've certified them already, and they're all doing a great job. Doesn't matter. And once in a while, there's a risk that's, like as I said, they might be already aware of it themselves, or maybe they're not. Or there's some confusion maybe in some of the advice they're getting, and this opportunity to just talk about it provides, cases I can think of just instances where that kind of thing has happened. It's like, well, one of my advisors telling me this, and another advisor telling me that. Turns out that they were, between those two pieces of advice, they weren't working out best for the producer. That kind of thing can happen, and that's nobody's fault. But you find it when you have a bit of a checkup, and that's the way we look at these, is just a checkup on the farm operation, see how it's doing. And with that kind of progress that takes place, should anything happen, or should any risk be identified, then we feel like we're good to go, and these guys and gals are happy to get the certification. They're happy to get the regulatory certainty that comes along with it, and we're happy to give it to them.
I went to the Department of Agriculture's website, and I printed out the application, and I'm going, and this is a government I'm dealing with? Only one page, five questions, and then if you're inspected, yep, you're doing everything great. That's it.
That's really it. We as you mentioned, for the producers, we survey the folks that we've certified too, and they've in their responses to us, they've said that it's taken them as the growers themselves about 4 hours to get through the process. Now that might be over, like I say, 2 weeks time or whatever it might be, but in terms of actually sitting down and doing anything relative to getting certified, they've all reported back to us at the average about 4 hours. Now, our local reps out there, the licensed folks I talk about, they might be doing a few more hours than that, but that's exactly the way it's designed, is that, they'll check some records, they'll, do some time out on the field or something like that if the producer's out there too, and that sort of thing. But that's how we design the program to work, is that producer just has to, show the interest, participate in it, in terms of conducting the assessment, risk assessment on the farm fields themselves. We've got a standard and open formula for that. We just kind of got a risk assessment process that we use. It's same for every farm in terms of just identifying where risks are, but because it's on a field-by-field basis, it's also 100% site-specific. So, when we first started this, people were saying, well, if you're going to certify farms in Minnesota, I got news for you. It's a little different around East Grand Forks than it is around Winona. I said, yeah, I'm quite aware. So, good luck trying to figure out a way to certify farms in Minnesota. He said, well, or the way we do it, settled upon, again, it wasn't rocket science, but the logic fortunately won out, is that, if you're going to certify a farm for protecting water quality, what you need to do is just go look at the field, pasture, whatever it might be on the farm, and say, like, is there a problem here or not? So that's how we approach it. It's like, well, if you're east of East Grand Forks, you just go out in the fields and you see, like, is there a problem here or not? Nope. If you're down by Winona, you just go out on the hillside there and say, has there got a problem here or not? Nope. Well, then it's easy to certify farms essentially in different types of Minnesota, because you're making it site-specific. It's the very opposite of one size fits all. It's like, what is the exact conditions of the physical conditions and the management on this parcel of ground we're standing on right here.
And the beauty of it is you're working with local soil and water conservation district technicians and NRCS that understand the local area. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, that's something we just discerned right away, is that let's don't manage this thing out of St. Paul in terms of operations and personnel and all that. Just get it out. We take 65% of our appropriation from legislature to operate this program, and immediately turn around and hand it out to the local communities, local soil and water conservation districts and producers out there to actually operate the program right out of the local offices, because that's where people are. That's where they know what's going on. Again, it's not going to be me sitting in my office up here. It's going to be the folks out there doing it. They're paid to do it. They're the professionals, and that's what we knew right away is to go through, is to make it local, and just provide the resources so that they can do the job that it's being asked of them.
My biggest frustration with the media, I guess I can criticize a profession that I'm in, but is sometimes landowners, farmers are portrayed as, well, they don't care about the land. They don't care about their livestock. They're just trying to make a profit. Well, first, what's wrong with trying to make a profit? But beyond that argument, doing the right thing environmentally is also doing the right thing profit-wise. I pay good money for my crop nutrients. I want my corn and beans to be able to use it. I don't want it to go down the Mississippi River. I want to keep my soil there. It doesn't benefit me if it's down in the Gulf of Mexico.
That's amazing that it's just not recognized as universally as it just, again, that same old logic would tell you that that should be an obvious understanding amongst anybody in the public. But yeah, I agree that it's not always recognized for that. And you know, when problems surfaced, you know, it's also an opportunity to save some money. Now maybe somebody's, you know, got some rented land and they weren't sure about what was being done ahead of time, and their fertilizer plan might actually take an advantage from having an adjustment to it, changing a rate or a timing or something, and they'll find out that, like, well, now that I know some more about the land history and I can actually save money and keep some money in my pocket, so I don't have to use the same I was using on you know, my other parcel across the road. And we're like, hey, happy to provide that opportunity to save you a couple dollars. And but to your original point and your initial point about not going out there to just be wasteful with those really expensive inputs in the first place, gosh darn, I mean, we see that obviously every day in the work that we do. That you don't have to tell a producer that. I mean, that's part and parcel to their everyday living in all cases.
And that's the beauty of this program, then. And we're able to use the Minnesota Department of Agriculture as a platform to get the word out that we're doing the best we can. And if we figure out how to do things better, we're going to adapt that. And I have to tell you about Central Farm Services. It's a large farmer-owned co-op in our area, and
I know them.
Yeah, and they teamed up with environmental tillage systems where you can strip till. And I can't justify a machine like that. I just farm a few acres, but I can hire them now to take my grid sample results and program it into that machine, and then they can variably apply my P&K this fall, injecting it 6 inches in the soil and strip tilling 10 inches while leaving 20 inches untilled. I would think that would be a pretty good practice that the certification people would think is pretty good.
We would certainly provide real recognition to producers who would do such a great management system, and there you go, Jay. That's an example right there, just what we've been talking about all morning. I mean, the advancements and the adoptions that producers are doing anyway. I mean, it's not because of certainly any certification program that we've created here. They're doing it anyway. We just created that program so that we can once and for all recognize folks and tell their story for them through it. And the stuff that CFS is doing down there, I mean, that's just a perfect example of stuff that you know, the word doesn't get out on. I don't think, not as much as we'd like anyway. And I think that sharing that story, if I can help in any way, that's you know, that's what gives me any job satisfaction.
And I assume that other governmental regulatory agencies like the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency you have their support. This is a good thing, and they're all behind it too, I would assume.
They really are. I'll tell you what. Like I mentioned, I didn't work in government until I took this job, and I wasn't sure about what government work was like myself. But you know what? It's been a pleasure, and the one thing that I got to be able to share with folks is that the fellow agencies in the state have been 100% behind this program all the way. The Pollution Control Agency you mentioned, they took it upon themselves to change their own policy just to support us by saying, one instance of that is that they said, hey, if you get to be a certified farm and you need a livestock permit, say you're doing an expansion or something, if you're certified, you automatically go to the top of the line. We want to do everything we can to reward and recognize people that are certified, and so they'll say when we're going through our regulatory process, our livestock permits, if you're certified, you go to the top of the line. And I'll tell you what, dairy producers and others really responded well to that.
I can imagine.
The Board of Water and Soil Resources has been fantastic. I mean, they're out there and working with the SWCDs, of course, every day, and the SWCDs, I feel like I haven't mentioned them enough already this morning because they've just been great. They are the vehicle. They're the locals. The state has so much to be proud of in the local soil and water conservation districts, and they're our central operating system for this program, I can tell you. But with Bowser on our side, they've just done outstanding work in supporting our efforts and furthering the promotion and the delivery of the program. The Department of Natural Resources at the same time, they actually own some land out there, so they've sought to get that operated at certification level. So, glad you brought that up. I'm happy to recognize them as well.
Well, I knew it was important, so we're getting into the news at the top of the hour, but I thought it was important to get that out quickly, Brad. If landowners, farmers want more information, start with your local soil and water conservation district.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brad. Can we do it again sometime?
I would like that, and I don't care how long it takes.
Thanks, Brad. That was Brad Redlin, who's a coordinator of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's Water Quality Certification Program. Here's news from ABC, already in progress.
Saying North Carolina's House 2 bill, the new law that prohibits people from using the restroom of the gender they identify with, goes against the organization.